Hey, what's up? So yeah. I was thinking about damn, I lost my train of thought somehow at the start of this, but I was thinking about when life is quiet. That's what it was. How like sometimes when it feels like nothing's happening and it feels like you're kind of stuck. And for me, it's easier when you're stuck in a situation that you're kind of like, okay, I'm kind of chilling, I'm kind of vibing with this, like I can handle it. Versus when you're in a rut and you feel stuck. That's kind of why making speed in the first place. By the way, still have a bad cough, so whatever. But yeah, being stuck when it feels like you're stuck in a rut is kind of tough because for me, when I've been moments where I felt the most stuck, it's like you don't really know what to do, and you're kind of in this position where you're not like happy, and you're like, how do I handle this? How do I deal with this for long term when you're struggling? And truthfully, it's a bit of a tough pill to swallow, but the only way to go through a situation like that is just by being present and just being in the moment. Because ultimately, life, will, life gives you lemons. Life gives you the things that you need in order to keep going through it. It's when you think ahead or think behind or like have regrets or all this stuff about what, oh, I should have done this or why did I do that or whatever. Or like, oh, how am I to do this? How am I to do that? It's when you're like living in those kind of things. That's when it gets too overwhelming and anxiety and stress and all that stuff. So the best case and kind of like the recipe, or if you say it, for any kind of situation where you feel stuck is by being present. And now that doesn't mean suddenly it's gonna be you're gonna be like suddenly it's gonna get easier or any of that stuff. But when you're present, when you're just in the moment, it's you have enough in order to kind of get through, if that makes any sense in any way or whatever. You have enough kind of wherewithal and enough whatever to get to that next thing. It's like playing a video game. Like each level's like your character has enough whatever to defeat the level. If you're like let's say like you're on World One or whatever, like Super Mario or whatever. I guess Super Mario is a bad example because it kind of is the same. But if you're like, let's say in a video game, whatever, you're like level fucking two or three or whatever, and then you're like thinking or like whatever about trying to face something that's level 5 or 6. You're like, that's not going to work out well. So that why would you do it in life? Why would you do? Why would you project yourself into situations that you're not in because you're not supposed to be in them yet because you got to like learn and grow or whatever in the meantime even for that. And sometimes I think we kind of worried, and the big thing we all do, or a lot of people do, it seems like, including myself heavily, is you kind of like almost assume things are going to go bad or assume the worst about situations, and you assume things falling apart, and you're like, oh, how do I do this, or what am I going to do, whatever. And ultimately, usually things, I mean, even when things fall apart, even whatever, it works out. Like, we're all here, we're all alive. Like, the amount of thousands of things that I've stressed about or worried about that ultimately mean nothing in the grand scheme of things, like the worry had no bearings, like in anything, is ridiculous. And how much time I've wasted. Because that's the thing. When you're kind of thinking or whatever in the future, like in the past, or worry about stuff, you're kind of not living in what you have now. So you're losing time because you're losing whatever moments you have are not, you're not in them. You're kind of in other areas around it. So ultimately, what's happening is you're kind of just wasting your life a little bit, which sucks. But I feel like it's something that is a pretty common thing to do. Like, it's a pretty common thing, and I've struggled with it about like during the weekend. If I have a weekend, especially like on Sundays, like thinking about school when I was school on Monday, or like you think about work, or you think about, oh, I got to do this thing or that thing, or hang out with this person, do that thing, instead of just, even if it sucks, even if it's not fun, even if it's uneventful, being present within the day that you have, or the hour you have, or minute you have, or whatever, even if it's just in the morning or at night or during the day or whatever, just being like still in that, like kind of in like living through that. It's much easier said than done, but it is something possible for literally anyone. Like literally anyone can do it, but it's one of those things that we all actively try to avoid doing unless it's all fun and games. Like, okay, it's great if you're like with someone you love, or you're playing like your favorite game, or you're like hanging out, or like eating your favorite food like that. Then it's fantastic. It's easy to be present and to have all this stuff. But the second that it gets tougher, or it's like you're by yourself, or you're doing something boring, or you're in some like terrible job or something like that, that's when it's really easy to whatever. And although it sucks to be present in those moments, those are kind of some of the most important ones to be present in, because it almost always is a case to where you gotta like be in those situations to learn or grow or see things in a new perspective or whatever, to the point to where that would help you later in life or in areas that you actually enjoy. Like it kind of like gives you the, I don't know. It's like what I always use the same example, but it's like eating veggies. You gotta kind of eat the veggies and all that stuff in order to get stronger, or to grow, or to be healthy. And okay, man, I like doing them, but it's a necessary part of the deal. It's like it's like how like when in like dinners, whatever, how you have like a meat or like fish or whatever, like you have like a steak or like a salmon or something like that, and you have like broccoli or like asparagus or something like that, or like mashed potatoes or rice or something like that. Like you need each part of it, and sure, like if you're like me, like I'll just plow through whatever the heck the veggie is, just to get it out of the way, or like combine it with something to try and make it whatever, get that thing out of the way first. But you kind of it's just a necessary part of the process. It's so important, and I feel like the more that you're able to like at least be present, like just live in the moment of what it is that's happening in those moments, the more you kind of see the value in them versus just trying to fast forward through those times, or you're like so worried on other stuff and you're not present within them, or whatever you have it really. I think it's so important to have the ability to just live in the life you got, even when it's tough or whatever. So not just the easy time, not just the fun times, whatever. Like it's so important, because realistically, like life is not a thing that's crazy long. I mean, and a big thing also with life is that even if you live a lot of years, maybe you're not in this situation for that long, or you're not around these people for that long, or you're not this age for that long. That kind of stuff changes. Life changes quick, so it's like you don't want to waste the times you have in a certain time or whatever, just because it may be tougher, just because it may be a little boring at times. Also, I think it's important to be bored and to be in those situations where you're like present within the boredom, because it allows you to kind of see what you really like the most, or kind of like discover new things about yourself, or this, that, and the third. And when you're fast forwarding or you're trying to avoid it or whatever, that's kind of tough to do, because you're ultimately like ignoring the time that you got. And so that's why I'm not great at it. Sometimes I'll just scroll through TikTok or do whatever when I'm bored, or try to do things to try and fast forward through the times. But there's a value to having times where it's just like it's kind of still, there's nothing going on, because it's those times where you kind of like get to know yourself almost to like a deeper level, to like actually know yourself, versus just like, oh, my name is this and I like doing this, or this is my favorite food. Like you actually know, like, okay, what at my core, at my lowest, at my most authentic, who am I? What do I like to do? What would I want to do? What are ultimately the things I want to do in life? And that's kind of stuff I feel like you think about the most when you have nothing going on, and when you're present within whatever your life is. I don't know if that makes any sense. Let me know if it does. Hopefully anyone out there is having a great day. Love y'all. Subscribe, like, minions out.